There's a strange and uncomfortable truth about solitude that no one warns you about. The moment you start walking alone, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, you begin to shine in ways that feel almost magnetic, and not just to the kind or curious. You become visible to darkness, to toxicity, to those whose energies feed on control, noise, or dependency. You stop blending into the background of collective distraction, and suddenly people notice you. They notice your silence, your self-containment, your refusal to chase validation. And in that noticing, something primal gets triggered. To many, your solitude is a threat because it mirrors their emptiness. You embody what they fear, the proof that peace can exist without approval. So without meaning to, you become a mirror in which others confront their own discontent, and some will despise you for it. Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, and even Buddhist thinkers saw this pattern long before social media made it visible to millions. The quieter you become, the louder your presence feels to those who can't stand quietness. That paradox is what we explore today. Why being a loner makes you visible to toxic people, and how understanding this truth can set you free from it. To understand this, we first have to strip the modern stigma surrounding solitude. Most people treat loneliness as a failure of social life, a symptom of being unwanted or unable to connect. But solitude and loneliness are different species of experience. Loneliness hurts because it implies lack and absence of companionship. Solitude, on the other hand, is presence, fullness without noise. It's when you realize that the company you keep with your own mind matters as much as that of others. But here's the paradox. While solitude nourishes the soul, it disturbs the collective. The majority live in mental echo chambers. They survive on predictable patterns of validation, gossip, and distraction. When you step outside that rhythm, even quietly, you interrupt the flow of conformity. Your stillness becomes an unsung rebellion. And rebellion, even when peaceful, rarely goes unnoticed. Have you ever felt that tension the moment you stop playing along with small talk and people suddenly treat you differently, sometimes even suspiciously? That's not your imagination, that's human nature reacting defensively to an anomaly. Philosophically, we could say the loner represents autonomy made visible. The moment you don't need the crowd, you reveal the crowd's dependency. This is why toxic personalities, those who thrive on control and chaos, are drawn to loners like moths to a flame. They perceive your independence not as freedom, but as a challenge. It stirs something in them, something they cannot name. Because if you can exist peacefully without them, you invalidate the unspoken rule they live by. That worth must be borrowed from attention. Toxic people subconsciously need others to confirm their identity. Without admiration, conflict, or manipulation, they feel irrelevant. So they target the self-contained not necessarily because they dislike them, but because they sense stability they can't manufacture. Their attacks, whether through mockery, guilt, or control, are attempts to disrupt that equilibrium. They don't actually hate your silence, they envy it. Now let's explore this psychologically. A truly independent person, someone who thinks deeply, behaves quietly, and doesn't seek approval, becomes in a sense unpredictable. This frustrates the toxic psyche. Most social manipulators rely on reading patterns, behaviors, and insecurities. They exploit predictability. When they can't get a reaction, their fragile sense of control cracks. This is why the loner's calm drives them mad. You might have noticed how a toxic person will escalate, raise their voice, create drama, or push emotional buttons just to elicit a response from you. The goal isn't communication, it's domination through attention. And when you refuse to play, your stillness exposes their chaos. They feel seen in a way they never intended to be. So ironically, being invisible to the ordinary makes you hyper-visible to the manipulative. Your peace lights up every unhealed wound in the people around you. But it goes deeper. To be a loner isn't just a lifestyle, it's an orientation toward truth. Solitude strips away illusion because it reminds us that everything external is temporary. Once you taste the self-sufficiency of peace, the addictive highs of praise and the low anxieties of rejection lose their hold. You start seeing the games people play without needing to play them. And that's terrifying for those still in the game. It's as if you've stepped off stage during the performance, and now the actors resent you for proving the show isn't real. Toxic people thrive on psychological theater. The loner refuses to perform. Your refusal becomes a kind of mirror that reflects their dependence on audience. Suddenly, they either try to pull you back in or they demonize you for leaving. Isn't it strange that people who constantly chase attention often accuse loners of arrogance? What they really mean is, yourself. The predator effect, why toxic people hunt emotional independence. When you reach a state of emotional independence, something subtle but profound changes in your presence. You no longer emit the same frequency of need that most social interactions are built upon. You're not chasing approval or fearing rejection, and paradoxically, that makes you stand out even more. The modern social environment is like an ecosystem held together by invisible energy exchanges. People trade validation for attention, drama for empathy, approval for belonging. When you exit that system, when you no longer participate in the constant psychic marketplace, you disrupt an unspoken economy. For healthy people, your separation may inspire curiosity or respect, but for toxic people, it registers as a threat. They, consciously or unconsciously, see independence as deviance. To them, control equals connection, and emotions are currency. When you stop spending that currency, they hunt you, not out of logic, but instinct. It's not personal, it's energetic economics. Your peace becomes a resource they can't recreate internally, and therefore one they try to extract externally from you. Toxic individuals are rarely self-aware predators. They operate on emotional hunger. Just as sharks follow the scent of blood, broken personalities follow the scent of stability. Your calmness smells like supply to them. It promises something they don't possess. Emotional balance, self-control, grounded confidence. And so they move closer, not to learn from it, but to disturb it. Because to them, peace is proof of their imbalance. And in their worldview, the only way to restore equilibrium is to make you feel like them, anxious, reactive, uncertain. Watch their pattern. When you remain composed during their chaos, they escalate. When you don't take the bait, they invent new bait. The more silent you become, the louder they become. It's not because you're doing anything wrong, it's because your silence reminds them of an inner void they've never filled. They don't seek a relationship, they seek disturbance. They feed on reaction because it reassures them that they still have influence. You might have noticed that toxic people often appear when you're finally at peace. As soon as you stabilize your life, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, they re-enter disguised as sudden crises or unexpected dramas. Schopenhauer, ever the psychological diagnostician, said that most human interactions are driven by will, the hunger to impose self over others. The will isn't just survival, it's vanity, competition, the need to prove significance. When you, as a loner, stop playing these games, you expose the game itself. That's intolerable for those still trapped in it. So they test your boundaries, not to cross them only, but to see whether you'll reaffirm their reality by engaging. Ironically, the moment you acknowledge them emotionally, even in defense, you've validated their need for control. The only real defense against a toxic psyche, therefore, is not walls but detachment. You do not starve them by fighting back. You starve them by refusing to exist inside their narrative. But let's dig deeper. Why do loners develop this shine that toxic people see? It's because solitude refines perception. The loner becomes observant. They start to see subtleties others overlook: body language, tone, emotional residue. Toxic personalities, though they lack insight, sense this attentiveness. They interpret it as power. And power to them must either be owned or destroyed. When you're alone, it's clear that your energy belongs fully to you. There's no visible weakness to exploit. You're self-contained, no longer easily distracted or dependent. That containment unsettles shallow personalities. It's like staring into still water. Most people fear stillness because it reflects too much. So they throw stones at it, not to ruin it, but to interrupt the reflection. Your silence, your lack of reaction, your minimalism, it becomes intolerable to someone who cannot stand inner quiet. They need perpetual motion because stillness reveals everything they've repressed. And yet, the loner has a strange advantage. Awareness transforms prey into observer. Once you recognize toxic behavior as a reflex of the light and the mirror, turning toxic attention into spiritual insight. When you understand that being a loner makes you visible to toxicity, the next revelation emerges. This visibility is not just a curse, but also a mirror, a chance to understand the hidden mechanics of human behavior, and even deeper, of your own self. Every encounter with toxicity, once processed without ego, becomes an opportunity for an awakening. At first, dealing with manipulative or envy-fueled people feels like being hunted. But once you begin to see the deeper pattern, something interesting happens. You stop feeling targeted and start feeling taught. Toxic people don't appear randomly, they reveal the exact parts of ourselves that still tremble, doubt, or overreact. They test the stability of our peace. The more still you become, the subtler the tests. At first, the tests are social, maybe gossip, contempt, rejection. Then they become psychological, small provocations meant to pierce your calm. If you observe them closely, these interactions turn philosophical. Each one asks, are you truly detached or only pretending to be? And if you answer with awareness instead of anger, even toxicity becomes part of your spiritual education. The loner's visibility, therefore, is not punishment, it's feedback. The world reflects you based on your vibration. Toxic people are instruments of contrast. They show you where peace turns into pride, where silence becomes suppression, where confidence morphs into ego. That's why no one graduates from solitude fully immune. You keep learning through friction. If you meet cruelty and still feel hatred, it means your peace is incomplete. It still depends on external validation. But if you meet cruelty and feel clarity instead, then solitude has done its job. Every unprovoked attack, every unfair judgment, every manipulative gesture becomes an unintentional teacher, reminding you how much mastery you've gained and how much further your mastery can grow. The philosopher who understands this doesn't resent adversity, he recycles it into self-knowledge. You begin to see that toxic attention is the tax you pay for internal freedom. But it's a small price, because unlike approval, which evaporates the moment you conform, self-awareness only deepens the more you're tested. When Schopenhauer wrote about society's tendency toward mediocrity and envy, he emphasized something crucial. Most people don't attack because they understand you, they attack because they can't. Envy is confusion mixed with resentment. It's the feeling of seeing someone live out a freedom you've denied yourself. So when you walk alone, thinking your own thoughts, creating your own rhythm, you're unknowingly triggering the abandoned potential in others. Your reflection wakes up what they've been trying to bury. That's why their hostility seems disproportionate. It's not you they're fighting, but the part of themselves they neglected. Understanding this neutralizes the sting of their behavior. Instead of personalizing their toxicity, you interpret it as a symptom of collective sleep. It doesn't make their actions acceptable, but it liberates you from the illusion of fault. You become, in essence, emotionally untouchable, not because the world stopped throwing stones, but because you stopped identifying as the target. Now, this transformation takes practice. Being above toxicity doesn't mean retreating into cold detachment. It means maintaining emotional aliveness without contamination. When a manipulator tries to provoke you, your first task is recognition, not resistance. You say inwardly, this is energy fishing. The moment you label it clearly, the spell breaks. Because what feeds toxic people isn't your presence, it's your confusion. Once you know what they're doing, their power dissolves. But awareness must be gentle, not cynical. If you become paranoid, always expecting betrayal, you've lost the essence of solitude, which is trust in your own perception. The true loner doesn't need constant defense because clarity itself is armor. You begin to develop an intuitive radar. You can feel hidden resentment before it speaks, sense manipulation before it unfolds. This sensitivity can be burdensome, but it is also your evolution. The more tuned you are to darkness, the more effectively you can stay in light. Here's a paradox few realize. Toxic people and their destructive attempts often accelerate your growth. Because once you learn composure in the face of venom, you learn emotional alchemy. Every insult becomes material for reflection. Why did that sting? What wound did it graze? Over time, lonely souls who process their pain this way become radiant. Not with defensiveness, but with maturity. Pain accepted becomes insight. That's why some of the most peaceful, wise individuals have endured the most chaos. They've passed through every type of projection without losing their center. They've realized that other people's turbulence isn't theirs to manage, it's only theirs to perceive. And in that perception, there's liberation. Toxic attention is transformed into spiritual clarity because you no longer react from fear, you respond from understanding. You stop asking, "Why are they treating me this way?" and start asking, "What in me is being strengthened through this?" That single shift turns persecution into purification. But this awareness reshapes how you relate to all humans, not just the harmful ones. You stop expecting depth from everyone, and that saves you immense energy. Not everyone is meant to meet you at the same psychological altitude. Some come into your life to remind you of noise so that you can remember silence. Some come to test, some to teach, and a few, very few, arrive to walk alongside you in truth. The loner who knows this becomes peaceful among all types because he has stopped seeking symmetry where there can only be contrast. Harmony does not mean sameness, it means alignment. You align with your own frequency and let others live in theirs, even if it's chaos. This understanding frees you from bitterness. You stop calling people toxic as an identity and start seeing toxicity as an unconscious habit of energy, one that may dissolve whenever awareness finally dawns in them. In that decentering, compassion awakens. You can love flawed humans without letting them drain you. And perhaps this is the pinnacle of solitude properly understood, transforming visibility into vision. Toxic people will always see you through the lens of their distortion that's inevitable. What matters isn't their perception, it's your discernment. You begin to see the world as layers of consciousness interacting, each vibrating at its own understanding of truth. The loudest minds are often the most afraid, the calmest are quietly rearranging the world without fanfare. So when you, the loner, attract unwanted attention, know it's a recognition of your vibration. You've left the invisible crowd that hides behind shared illusions, and your visibility unnerves those who rely on illusion to feel real. To exist truthfully, then, is to shine whether you're understood or not. That's why the loner's life is inevitably a luminous one, quiet, provoked, but ultimately unshakable. In this light, the philosophical lesson becomes both ancient and modern. Awareness has gravitational pull. The moment you rise in consciousness, everything below that new altitude notices. Some rise to meet you, others throw stones of misunderstanding, but the stones never reach beyond comprehension. They crumble at the base of your understanding because ignorance always breaks itself against awareness. Your only job is to remain aware, to keep evolving from reaction to reflection, from being hunted to being enlightened. Eventually, you stop asking, "Why do they target me?" and realize they can only see me because I'm light in their night. You understand that visibility to darkness is part of what it means to illuminate it all. And in that realization, quiet, humbling, liberating, you stop wishing to hide. You no longer resent your sensitivity or your solitude. You accept the visibility as proof of presence. Yes, being a loner makes you visible to toxic people, but it also makes you visible to truth, to depth, to every authentic thing that shallow noise has forgotten. It's not a curse, but a calling, the calling of those who see, think, and feel beyond the collective trance. The world may not understand that light, but it will always recognize it, even through hostility. And as long as you preserve that light, not as defense, but as awareness, you'll find that toxicity, at its deepest level, was only ever life's way of testing whether you were ready to shine.